Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's do some local sports roundup brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center. And I'll start off with hockey because we got some seedings out, right?
We do.
For hockey and such. And that starts next week?
Yes. Next Tuesday starts the boys and girls hockey postseason. So playoff pairings kind of trickled out last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, around here in Division I for boys hockey, you've got Hudson and Memorial as 4 and 5 seeds. New Richmond a 3 seed. They bump up to Division I this year due to the WIA success factor rule. They had a lot of success the last few years in Division II. They are up, and New Richmond won the Big Rivers during the regular season. So that's that's certainly a team that's going to be able to to compete against larger schools because it's been doing that already this year. Stevens Point and Wausau West, a couple of Wisconsin Valley teams are first and second respectively. So next Tuesday we got the first round and starts. We got Chai hosting Eau Claire North. That's an 8-9 matchup. The winner of that game will go on to face Stevens Point later on in the week. You got Eau Claire Memorial hosting the Merrill Wausau Newman Wausau East Co-op. And that's going to be obviously at Hobbs. You got Hudson taking on Marshfield. And then Division II, obviously going to be a lot of familiar names there too. You got Rice Lake as a 3 seed. They're going to take on Spooner. The 4-5 matchup in there is I always forget. I'm just going to say the names because it's easier than trying to remember the proper acronym for it. Frederick, Grantsburg, Luck, Siren, Webster.
Justice went through this on Monday.
Yeah, it's like WSFLG.
Yeah.
But otherwise, in a separate section, you've got. Hold on 1 second. I just want to make sure I got this right. There we go. In a separate section, you got Ram, Regis Altoona McDonald. They are the 3 seed. They're going to be hosting Menominee.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams matched up in the regular season, and Ram picked up the win there. But the winner of that will face either River Falls or Viroqua. The number 1 seed in that section is Somerset. Baldwin Woodville's in there as well. So a really significant middle border presence there, obviously, with some of the smaller Big Rivers team mix in there. And those smaller Big Rivers teams you always got to look out for because, they've spent this regular season playing the New Richmonds and the Hudsons and the Chippewa Fallses and the Memorials and all those teams of the world. So, those are teams that by the time you get to the postseason, you're adequately prepared to go. And on the girls' hockey side, that's a section that I don't know if you can necessarily handicap it because you've got. We talked a little bit about the race for the Big Rivers Championship, which ultimately ended up with St. Croix Valley splitting with Western Wisconsin.
Okay,
those are the top 2 seeds in that section. Not too much of a surprise there, but you've got Eau Claire. You got Eau Claire area as the 3 seed. They're going to take on Hudson. You got Chippewa Falls Menominee as the 4 seed. They're going to host Black River Falls, and all these teams have spent the last few months, being able to kind of beat up on each other. You've got, I know Chippewa Falls has a win over St. Croix Valley. They got a win over Eau Claire Eau Claire area. So, and that's going to be one of those sections where it honestly would not. There's about 4 or 5 different teams that you could tell me right now, hey, that team goes to state, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to it's going to come down to who's playing the best, and I think it's part of it, as hockey in the postseason often does, going to come down to which team has a hot goalie.
And you kind of alluded to that, too, in one of your pieces earlier this week, didn't you, with 3 kind of postseason sleepers?
Right. One of them I did have was Chippewa Falls Menominee, just because they have some of that success. The offense has kind of picked up here recently for the Sabres, and that's a team that, again, if they played Black River Falls at the start of the year, Black River Falls did beat them. So Black River Falls certainly is a team you could fix into there as another possible one. But if with whoever wins going on to face St. Croix Valley, I said that's a team that Chippewa Falls Menominee split with in the regular season. They lost by 1 goal earlier this week. So the hockey postseason kind of goes pretty quick because you skip around compared to what you see a lot with basketball. But by the time we chat next Friday, we're gonna know for the most part, because some of these games will be played, those regional finals will be played on Friday, but a lot of them are played on Thursday. So
okay, gotcha. And then wrestling, what girls regionals start today?
Girls regionals are today. Pretty much everyone from around here will be going to Merrill.
Okay.
So that's there'll be
Blue Jay country.
Wearing out the highway there, but obviously a lot of the teams from around here that are they're going to be good representation there. Obviously, the Eau Claire schools. And the interesting thing too is with girls wrestling, the quick growth of it. I mean, it is the participation in the first 3-4 years of this has grown, by multiples. That's why this is happening, and this is a good thing. It's facilitating that girls wrestling needs its own separate regional and sectional to figure out who's going to stay.
Right.
In the past, there would be just a sectional, and they would kind of be run at the same time as the boys sectional, and now there's just so many people that you have to. You got to kind of have your own. They need the room. Let's put it that way, and that's a good thing.
Right. So boys this weekend.
Yep, boys.
Okay.
Yep, boys is getting underway tomorrow. A lot of the Division I teams from this area are going to be going to Hudson.
Okay.
So, and then next week, Eau Claire North hosts the sectional. So, if you're a fan of Big Rivers wrestling, you're not going to have to go too far to watch it. But in Division II, Bowl Woodville for a lot of the teams around here. Division III, maybe Cumberland or Edgar. So it's not too far as it drives, and hopefully whatever weather we got coming this way is moved through by then. So in the morning, it's nice and easy for people to make that jaunt.
Exactly. And then this weekend, we also find out girls basketball seedings, correct?
Right. That's Sunday morning.
So, and
that's, we're kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty for, just girls basketball in general.
Because Memorial won BRC,
yeah, they already
right?
clinched the outright Big Rivers. They got a chance to conclude they got one more game on the schedule, and that's coming up next week. But otherwise, I'm looking around the Western Clover Belt as well. That's one that we know that Regis has a share of the conference championship. Their conference season is done, but you've got Fall Creek and McDonald who can still both clinch a share if they win tonight. Fall Creek plays Cadott, McDonald plays Thorpe, and Tuesday night McDonald picked up a big win over Fall Creek to kind of move them back into a tie in the loss column. Odd number of teams in the Western Clover Belt this year with Osseo moving to the Dairyland before Elk Mound moves in next year. So every time that there's a round of conference play, there's always going to be one team that's off from conference play. So that's why Regis has played one more conference game than those two. But that's that Division IV section is going to be very interesting once we get to the postseason, because out of those three teams, McDonald's actually in a different half of the section from Fall Creek and Regis. So, and then remember last year McDonald and Fall Creek played in the sectional finals. So, it's a very interesting setup because you've got, I'll just call it it's not even necessarily fair to call it the south end, but just for the south end of that section, you've got Fall Creek, you've got Regis, you've got Durand, Arkansas, you've got Colfax in there, which, Colfax is a team that's had a lot of success, obviously, over the years, and, that's a team that, even if the record isn't quite maybe what it's been some other years, that's still a team I think you always got to keep an eye on, just because of, the history and just the success that they have there. In the northern half of that, McDonald, that's a team that I'm kind of curious with the seedings to see, because we kind of know the things that factor in. Remember, it's computerized seeding. It's not it's still, which is still the case in hockey, but in many of these sports now, it's a computerized seeding where the WA has a formula that they go to, and then it kind of just spits out who's where as far as the seeding goes, and you go from there. But McDonald's going to be an interesting test case because they don't their record. They're 14-8, so or 13-8, sorry. But so there's going to be other teams in that section you look at, or half of the section you look at, Cameron, Marathon, Phillips, that have better records. But one of the things that factors into this, and this is going to be true in all divisions, is strength of schedule. And McDonald has a very strong strength of schedule when you factor in not just playing the Fall Creeks and the Regises of the world, but also in non-conference playing teams like Lacrosse Aquinas, Unalaska, who's a Division II team, other teams like that. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see, and that's something I'm looking at, not just with McDonald, but with all these teams, that just to see how much does strength of schedule weigh versus maybe a team that hasn't played quite as strong of a schedule but has a stronger record.
Gotcha.
It's a balancing act. I mean, we hear that, and that's something you hear a lot in college football too, and it's it's going to be the case I think with basketball.
And then boys will find out the following week for
correct.
Seedings,
That'll be a week from Sunday, but we've got some of these conference title races coming down to the wire. Eau Claire Memorial in the driver's seat, 11-0 in Big Rivers play. They can outright clinch that. this evening. They play Rice Lake. They play at Rice Lake, so a win there for the Old Aves would give them the outright conference championship. They need to win one of their final 3 games to clinch the outright. They've already clinched a share, but at this stage of the game, you can never blame a team for wanting to be a little selfish and not wanting to share. So they got 3 opportunities to take care of that between this week and the next week. So the Western Clover Belt, Bloomer has picked up some. Last night they picked up a big win over Fall Creek, so they are sitting a half game up top on the conference. Regis is a half game back. Bloomer 8-2, Regis 8-3. Stanley Boyd a full game back, and Bloomer at 7-3. So going into the final week, and Bloomer can clinch at least a share with a win next Tuesday. They got Thorpe. Stanley Boyd, they've got a big game coming up next Tuesday against Regis. So that's kind of basically that game coming up next week with Stanley Boyd and Regis is kind of the de facto who kind of can stay in the mix, knowing that next Friday to close the conference season, Bloomer hosts Stanley Boyd. So all 3 of those teams at the top, Bloomer, Regis, and Stanley Boyd, are still right in it. And they're gonna, and it's kind of the way you like to see it when it comes out to this. They're playing each other, so it's gonna the team that comes out and has the best week next week is going to end up as the conference champion. That's that's what you like to see.
Right. I know, too, you spent last night gymnastics.
Yep.
Was it home for Chippewa Falls and McDonald?
Correct. They were hosting Bloomer Colfax. Kind of near the end of the regular season. It's a duel, but, just kind of a nice thing for both teams to have. For the Chippewa Falls McDonald, they're going to host the Big Rivers meet next Saturday. So not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And Bloomer Colfax has one more meet before sectionals. They're in Division II. They'll be up in Ashland, I believe, on Saturday. So,
okay.
But yeah, we're getting down to kind of the the nitty gritty for gymnastics too. In gymnastics, like boys swimming, which their sectionals, diving, I believe, is today, and swimming is tomorrow. They go straight to sectionals.
Okay.
There's no regional and men's sectional. You just have sectionals, and there's a lot of sports that do that. I think of sports like cross country does that. Like sometimes you just jump right in. So and yeah, that's right around the corner. Chippewa Falls McDonald having another outstanding season, set a school record with their for their team score, which was a little above 146, which is one of the highest you're going to find around the state. That was last week actually when they hosted a double triangular for the Big Rivers at Chippewa, and that's coming down to the end there. That's a team that they won Big Rivers last year. They won sectionals last year. They finished 4th, I think, at state. 2 years ago they were 3rd state. That's a team that's led by its seniors, Ava Krista, Ellis Spaeth, and Lily Schultz. They're anytime that team is competing somewhere, there those 3, along with junior Peyton Grunwald, are usually pretty high up on the rankings. So that's a team that. When we're talking about gymnastics in the coming week, that's probably going to be the first thing we're talking about but you're going to have Eau Claire in the mix as well. They're going to have some contenders to go to state as well. So it's going to be a fun time as we hit the latter half of February. Everything just kind of comes to a head.
I wanted to get your thoughts to wrap it up. I know was it last week and such, but with the football, high school football,
yes, the playoff matrix,
yes, because that obviously was you saw last year with some, and then first of all, 8-man expanding, doubling.
Correct, doubling up, which was good because last year, 8-man was kind of in a tough spot because they had 16 teams, and they didn't want to expand it too quick. But as it's grown, obviously, that necessitates having more playoff teams. And you did last year. You had some good teams that were unfortunately on the outside looking in. I think of teams like Gilman, New Auburn.
Yep.
Gilman, who was actually originally in the original announcement for the postseason, and then I had to kind of come back and say, "Oh, that's not, that was a mistake." But Gilman, was 6-2. Their 2 losses were 2 very competitive games to McDonald and Owen Withy, who Owen Withy ended up winning state. So, that's a tough spot where you're 6-2, and you've lost 2 games to 2 teams that were ranked. 2 of the top, I think, 5 teams in the state at the end of the regular season. New Auburn had a really good year. I think they were 6-3 or 7-3. So, that I think that's fair for doubling that up. And if you kind of look at the field, if you doubled up last year, you really weren't having any teams with egregious records getting in. But
right.
As far as the playoff matrix go, what it is essentially it's a system put together. I think Ohio's a state that's been doing it for a while, where it's kind of a way to, I guess, maybe more evenly balance the postseason. when it comes to how teams are divvied up and how teams are seated. Because the last few years, the WIA has actually gone to electronic seating for football as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been some point in contentions in there, as there's going to be with any seating. But this is one that was overwhelmingly positive, at least from the Wisconsin Football Coach Association. Like the association reached out to its members and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And it was overwhelmingly positive. The coaches I've talked to, it's been I've talked to some that really like it. I've talked to some that aren't big fans of it or think that could use some more tweaking. So, but that's going to be the case, I think, with any system. I don't think you're going to see universal love or hate for anything.
Right.
But it's going to be something that's new, and kind of the interesting thing with it, if I'm thinking of this correctly, is teams will generally know at the beginning of the year what division they're going to be in, which is interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how that is enforced, because obviously you don't know who's in the playoffs
right
until near the end. But regardless, it's something that a lot of people really like, and I'm just kind of curious to see how it is in practice, because you can run kind of simulations of, well, this is what it would have looked like last year, etc. But until you see it kind of in front of you, you can't. I don't think you can make full judgments.
I think one thing too, because when we always talk about when it comes to high school football, the conference record, did I read like that's not conference record was kind of a factor into this now too, where it maybe is not like the first indicator or first benchmark?
No, and part of it too is actually it's gonna weigh versus kind of the wins you get in kind of the division, the size of the team. So basically, you're gonna get more credit if you're playing larger teams. And one of the critiques I've seen of that is if you're a larger team, if you're a team in the Big Rivers, the Wisconsin Valley, like, are you gonna not? You may not get as much credit for beating a really good team. Like if it's a Division II team, but if it's a Rice Lake or a New Richmond, I mean, those are top level teams.
Right.
Like a Rice Lake, if you're defeating them, that's So in some ways, it almost on the one hand, it does give you more. It gives you more motivation to maybe play larger schools if you're a smaller school, but at the same time, if you're a larger school, it kind of maybe doesn't give you as much to want to play a slightly smaller school, even if that smaller school is a very good school. So it's just something I think we're going to have to give it a few years and see how it works for Wisconsin.
And for some of these conferences, I mean, their majority of their schedule are already conference opponents anyways, right?
Right. So a lot of this doesn't matter because you're playing. You've got 6-7 games that are taking care of it already.
Right. How would it factor? I'm curious. Like Regis played out. Was it an Illinois team last year?
Right. And that's one I'm not sure. Like how out of states are factored. I think it's spelled out, but it's something I'll be honest, I didn't look into too much just because that was a special circumstance.
Right.
So I haven't really looked into that too much to see how that would impact.
Yeah.
Any teams that play a team from Minnesota or from Illinois.
Right. Blue Gold wise, I know basketball. We only got 3 more games left in the regular season. Blue Golds will be the men's team traveling to Point tomorrow. The women's team, their final regular season game, will be at Sonotag. Stout is taking on Platteville. Stout's men's team will be at home, and Stout men's team will be at home, and then the women's team will be on the road too. That's your local sports roundup, brought to you by Carpet City Flooring.